Hello! I think we're live. We shall see here. Wait a few minutes and we'll get the party started. Yep, looks like we're live. So if you have any questions, you can put them down in the comment section, and we have a couple questions from over the last few days that I will address. So let's see. Carla asks, I'd like to learn more about booking our home expenses to our business. Are they just tax write-offs at the end of the year? Or can we pay from our business these expenses like Wi-Fi, power, phone, etc.? So, hi everybody. So that question, it's also sort of a tax question, not just a bookkeeping question. So if you're a sole proprietor, you will on your tax return you would do what's called a business use of home, and you would write a portion of your home off, and that would include all those types of expenses. And there's a section on that form that has there's sections on the form for direct expenses. So like if you have a phone line or Wi-Fi or something else that's directly associated with the bookkeeping business, it would go on the direct expenses lines. And then there's indirect expenses. This is too much information, but the indirect expenses would take in a percentage of your home office compared to the percentage of your whole home. So like for Wi-Fi, if you would most likely use Wi-Fi for your whole home. Let's say your office was 10% or 20% or whatever percent it is of your home, it would get calculated in the tax return. So that's for a sole proprietorship. If your business is a separate entity, like an S Corp or something like that, then you can do it. And each one of these, you can do them different ways, but you can have the business actually write the business portion of the expenses out and code it would be a business expense. And you would actually submit 2 payments to the utilities company, for example, one from the business, one from the personal, and in total you'd be paying the whole bill. Another option is you pay the whole thing out of your personal, the business reimburses you for the business portion of it. Another option is you don't do any of that during the year and you do it at the end of the year. You can either pay yourself back whatever portion that calculates to, and in one payment, and you code it proportionately. You post it accordingly in your QuickBooks, or you don't write a check at all. You don't move any money at all, and you just do a journal entry between the expenses and your equity account. So there are quite a few different ways to do that, and I know that I could do a whole video on just that. So I'll leave it at that for now, and I can do a follow-up on that with you, Carla, at a later time. So let me see who else is. So good morning, and everybody that's watching. Cool. All right. I forgot to set my phone to do not disturb, so any calls or texts I get will disturb our video. But let's see, what else do we have? Nicole says, okay, that was a different thing. Nancy says asks if you are a sole proprietor or LLC, do you just take income from the business as a draw, or do you recommend an actual paycheck with taxes taken out? So if you're a sole proprietor, you do not do payroll for yourself. You can do payroll for other people, but as a sole proprietor, you do not pay yourself through payroll. It's just because the sole proprietor is on your personal tax return. It's not a separate entity, so you do not put yourself on payroll. If you're a sole proprietor, you would just take draws. And if you're an LLC or a separate entity, then you would put yourself, if you're like an S corp, you would put yourself on payroll and pay yourself through payroll. And you do a combination. This is again getting into a tax question. You would do a combination of payroll and draws. So, and I recommend you speak to your tax advisor for the balance of that. Because that's getting into tax advice. But yeah, but the important thing is if you're a sole proprietor, you're not on payroll. You can have employees on payroll, but you yourself would not be on payroll. A separate tax entity, yes. And look at my video where I talk about LLCs, because LLCs, single member LLCs, are disregarded entities at the federal level. Meaning you're still a sole proprietor at the federal level if you're a single member LLC. So LLCs are super popular. I think that's what most people think of, but that's because of, I think, lawyers push LLCs. But lawyers don't do taxes, and if you do taxes, you know that a single member LLC is disregarded at the federal level. You would have a state LLC tax return that is a separate tax return, but at the federal level, you're still a sole proprietor. So it defeats the whole purpose of becoming an LLC for tax purposes, because it's not even recognized at the federal level. You're still a sole proprietor. So hopefully that helps that. But I do have a whole video on that on the YouTube channel. So you can, if you're not familiar with the YouTube channel, I'll put a link up for that later. But there's a video on LLCs in there. All right, let's see. Okay, Abram asks about what's the best thing to do when a client does not pay you after you invoice them? That's a learning curve that I had to deal with, and I've definitely gotten smarter over time on how to handle a whole situation with a new client. So ongoing existing clients, they will typically pay you because you have a relationship with them, and they don't want you to stop working for them. But a new client, so the answer to the question is sort of one of those things where you try to avoid getting into that situation, so that you don't have to answer that question. But so going into a new client situation, especially if there's a cleanup job, if it's a small dollar amount type of thing, I don't typically ask for money up front. So like if I'm taking over somebody's books, it's $200 a month. It's going to be $200. I'm just starting to work with them. I would I always invoice at the beginning of the month anyways. So let's say I'm taking over somebody's books. It's only going to be $200. I'm going to just invoice them for that when I get it done, and then move them onto a regular billing schedule. And I expect that they're going to pay it. If they didn't, it's not a lot of money. But if it's a cleanup project, I ask for at least 50% up front. So if I give them a quote for this is going to be a $2,000 job, I will ask for an invoice for $1,000 before I even get started. So and I have to receive that money before I even get started. And then I'll sometimes if they feel right, a lot of it's your feeling about them too when you're talking to them. And over time you'll start to gain a feeling for the clients and if they're going to be trouble or not. I will typically get 50% or more up front, people usually don't like paying more than 50, but they usually understand 50. So you get 50% up front. And if it's a really big project, I'll do it even in more chunks. I'll do 50% to get started, and then maybe if it's like a 2-year cleanup thing, then I'll want 25% more after I provide X amount of work, and then the remaining 25% when I finish the work, that kind of thing. So that's how I handle even getting into that situation where they don't pay. That's the best advice, is set up a system where they are paying on the front end of things instead of after the work is completed. And I do that with my bookkeeping as well. Like I said, all my bookkeeping clients, I invoice them on the first of the month for that particular month. So I just invoiced on the first or the second for client. And you can also get them on auto pay so that you don't even have to deal with that. I'm still getting over a cold, unfortunately, so I'm drinking hot tea and I may cough. So let me see what else we have going on here. Nice to meet all of you that I haven't seen before. All right, Dylan, good question. Yes, can you talk more about the strategy where you set up multiple domains in different cities leading back to your services? Yeah, so for instance, where I live, I don't do it anymore, but when I was building up my practice, I live on the coast, and cities run east of me as well, but I'm as far west as you can go in the United States. So I basically got domains, names. I got the domain names, websites, that's the domain name. Set up the hosting, got logos, did everything that you do for one. I did it for several, I think about 5, both north and south of me. So the towns kind of north and south of me, and I did some east as well. I targeted basically, it may have been even more than 5, but if you're in an area where, even in a state where you want to target the main cities in the state and still feel like you're sort of local, because when somebody calls and you're out of state or something like that, that's a little more of a disconnect to a client. But if you're, say, in Kentucky and you want to hit all the major Kentucky cities, and then you talk to somebody from Kentucky, you can still relate to them to some degree because you both live in Kentucky. So you got to weigh that into it as well. And then you can also think about area codes. So I'm in a particular area code, and I could literally, if I'm going to have my area code on the website, which I recommend you do, instead of an 800 number, it makes it feel more local, and they can connect to you. So if you saw my last video on YouTube, it was about connect. One of the things is you need to be personable and have a connection with your clients. And so having your local phone number on there instead of an 800 number, I think that is better. It makes them feel like they can relate to you more and that you're more accessible. So instead of calling an 800 number, getting a voice message or something like that, or getting a delay in a response. So you could also do the area code thing where you could target all the cities in your area code. So it depends on, the population size and stuff like that, whether that's a good idea to do. Where I'm at, it is a good idea to do because there's a lot of population in all of the cities that are still in the same area code. And then even neighboring area codes are literally neighboring cities, so they don't feel there's a whole bunch of targeted marketing that I could do if I wanted to. And so it depends on where you live. But you could also, like I said, you could also do the statewide thing, and hit all the major cities in the state. And I think that's a good idea. If your local situation isn't very populous. So if you live in a state that is more spread out in population, you might want to do a statewide thing. and hit the major cities in the state. So hopefully that answers that. I'm going to refresh this here. I'm kind of struggling with my cold, so I didn't want to cancel on you guys. Let's see here. Does anybody else have any questions? I don't know if I'm seeing them all. I think I am. So, like I said, if you haven't seen my YouTube channel, let me post that up, because there's a lot of good videos on there, and I post it all the time. So, let me add that here. Hey, Michael, I see your question. I'll answer that in a second. So here's the YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out and subscribe to it. Like I said, I post questions or videos every week on different topics, and so I just posted the link to that. So I would recommend subscribing to that. And then if there's any topics that are more in depth, I can do videos on those too. Like, 7 to 10 minute video. So Michael says, Steve, what is your favorite thing about being an accountant? Well, there's quite a few really. So my favorite thing is probably the flexibility. But what is the flexibility caused from? And that's it's caused from recurring revenue. That's one big thing. Or the main big thing is recurring revenue. People have to do taxes every year. Businesses have to do taxes. And individuals have to do taxes. So, if we're just talking about the bookkeeping side of things, businesses have to do taxes, so that they have to have books done. This is not a luxury item for them. They have to do it. So it's recurring revenue, meaning it comes around for the bookkeeping, it comes around every month, or if it's quarter, or if they you just see them once a quarter, even once a year. If you only do their books once a year, it's recurring work, which means recurring revenue. And then the tax side of things, I am going to do a video on the tax bookkeepers that do taxes and whether it's a good idea for people. But if you do taxes, then it's recurring revenue on the tax side too. And that's not just for businesses, but on a personal level as well. All individuals have to do taxes, or most anyways. There are exceptions. All right. Let's see if we have any more questions. So where are some of you from? It says 10 comments, but I don't see 10 comments, so I don't know what's up with that. Let me scroll on here. So here's a question. How many clients is okay for one person? Oh boy, cool. Chicago, I'm originally from Illinois. Okay, so El Commandante, it's a question, how many clients is okay for one person? It all depends on the size of the client, your efficiency, how much time you have. If you are doing bookkeeping full-time, you can have a lot of clients, a ton of clients, because, provided that you're going to work, say, in a 40-hour work week, and you can split that up however you want, but just for numbers, Or if you only wanted to work 20 hours a week, that's 80 hours in a month, roughly. And that's a lot of bookkeeping clients per month. So there is no set number on that. You could have one bookkeeping client that keeps you so busy that you don't have time for any other bookkeeping clients, or you could literally have 50. So there's a lot of range there. So people from everywhere. Yeah, I'm from the Midwest originally. Illinois, born and raised in Illinois. So still an Illinois boy, even though I've been out here for a long time. Let's see here. Chicago, Texas, Canada, Missouri, Sioux Falls. All right, Kevin is asking, at what point in annual revenue would you suggest looking for someone to help out with the bookkeeping? Again, it can't say that in a dollar amount. And it's also an efficiency thing. So if efficiency, when you first start out, you may have, here's an example. It might take you 4 hours to do the books for a company. When you're first starting out, that literally takes you 30 minutes to do when you get efficient at bookkeeping and that client and learning that client. And even though I've been doing this for a very long time, when I get a new client, it's going to take me much longer that first month and the second month to do it than a year down the road, because you're learning the habits of the client. So there's two things really going on over time. Is one, you're becoming more efficient as a bookkeeper. So the amount of clients that you can do in X amount of time is going to increase, or the amount of work. Talk about units of measure, I guess it would be work. The amount of work you can do in a given period of time is going to increase over time as your efficiency as a bookkeeper increases. And that includes not only your knowledge of QuickBooks, but how to log into their bank information, get their bank information. So the whole aspect of technology, keeping up with the latest and greatest, and so there's a lot of factors there that make you more efficient as time goes on. And then also the factor of learning the client's habits. So a new client is going to take you a little longer than they will a few months down the road after you've worked with them more time, longer. So, and then another thing is that you want to get your clients, you want to train your clients too. So if there's information that you need from your clients routinely, monthly, you want to get them trained to where you're asking for it in an efficient way for them to respond efficiently, so that it doesn't create a lot of back and forth, and every little thing adds up in time wise, so over a day. So you just get more efficient with things, both as a bookkeeper and with that particular client. Yeah, everybody says Midwest people are a little nicer. I hear that all the time. I think it's because we grew up in small towns and we know everybody, so it makes us more nicer to our neighbor, maybe. So Dylan's asking, follow up to the question earlier, would I just set up the other websites as DBAs and then try to rank those in search results? Yeah. So you don't necessarily need to set them up as DBAs. Like a domain name, it doesn't need to be a DBA. So you can. So for me, I invoice from a parent company or a corporation, and I have lots of domain names, but when I invoice the client, I am invoicing from my corporation. So if it's XYZ bookkeeping company.com, that they initially found me on, I'm going to still invoice them from my corporation. And I've never had anybody even comment about that. So that's how you don't have to go to the county and set up the DBAs for all of those necessarily. So back to Kevin, about being efficient, because I do taxes too, and every year I feel very overwhelmed during tax season, and and every year I would say this during tax season, next year I have to get help. But I'm already in the middle of tax season. I'm overwhelmed. To get help at that point in time would even cause more stress and time out of my day that I don't have. So it's always too late by then. And then tax season ends, and I'm like, okay, before next tax season, I really need to get some help. But then the next tax season comes, and and my business has grown even more. But what happens is I get more efficient. Like the weight of the work causes me to become more efficient. So you can always do more than you think you can in the same amount of time. You just have to, step up your game in one way or the other, and you'll be able to do more. You'll surprise yourself. And the longer you can hold out, maybe the better. I mean, everybody's situation is different, but obviously if you're keeping all the money, it's better than chunking it out. But there's different ways. If you can make, opportunity costs. So if you can make more money by having people do some of your work, it's obviously better. And grow a team, But there's downsides to that because, like today, I'm not feeling so good. After this, I'm going to lay on the couch for a bit or for a while. And then, because my son's in school and I don't have anything that I have to do today. But if I had a team that was reliant upon me to be providing them work or doing something for them or answering their questions and stuff, then I wouldn't be able to just turn off for a bit. So so you got to weigh that in. There's a lot of factors when you get people working for you. And then also people management is a whole different realm in itself. So some people have skills for that, some don't. So CIE, I hope I'm saying that right. How do you feel about getting an EA license from the IRS? I think it's great. So EA is a recognized credential. Everybody's heard of an EA. Mostly everybody's heard of EA. Mostly everybody's heard of a CPA. One or the other is great. All the other I have a video on this on the YouTube channel too about certificates, and all these programs and stuff. And I'm not a big fan of those except for the educational piece that you get out of it. It's Sierra, great. And hi Jeff. So an EA is great. So I think it's a great idea. And it's not as the requirements are not as high as getting a CPA. So it's a recognized road to go down by the public. So when you say that you're an EA, that will give you clout, and it can help get you clients, just like being a CPA can. But it's a little easier road. I'm not knocking it by any means. But it's an easier road than getting a CPA. So, EA, good idea. Go for it. Keep us posted. But it will help whenever if you're a CPA or an EA and you have that after your name and you're trying to get business. It will help. If you're an EA and if a client is weighing their options for a bookkeeper, and you're an EA and the other person they're looking at is not an EA, it will definitely tip the scale in your favor. Same with CPA. Let's see if we have any more questions. Any more questions? I hope I didn't miss any. I'm doing this on my phone. The video's on my phone. I'm trying to look at the questions on the computer, but it doesn't update as fast, so for some reason. I think that's it. Any more questions going before I go nurse my cold on the couch? Here's the deal. I've been saying that I'm going to do this on a regular basis forever, but I'm actually at a point where I think I can actually do that. So I want to start doing this every Thursday because it works out best with my schedule with my son and everything. So I would like to make this a weekly thing, and so just kind of anytime you have questions, you can put them in the Facebook group. But kind of keep in mind also that I do plan to do this on a regular basis, on a weekly basis. So we can touch base weekly, and hopefully it helps you. So another question from Sierra. Do you have any videos on sending emails to clients from LinkedIn or Facebook? No. What do you mean by, like, can you ask a more detailed question? Sending emails to clients, like soliciting clients or responding to clients? I think you're talking about soliciting clients. So from LinkedIn or Facebook. Well, on Facebook, I don't think you have their email address. But you can. Cheryl brought this up. By the way, I hope you guys are enjoying the addition of Cheryl to the group as a moderator. I think she's doing great and adding a lot of valuable content. So hopefully you feel the same. And if you do, please let her know. Like sending cold emails to, it's a numbers game whenever you're soliciting for clients. So if you can send out 1,000 emails to people that are actually looking for bookkeepers, you're going to get a certain percent of response. If you're sending out 1,000 emails to businesses that, there's only going to be a small percentage of them that are even looking for bookkeepers. And then are they going to be interested in your thing? So it whenever you're dealing with advertising, marketing, soliciting, it's a numbers game. So if you send out 100, there's a good chance that you may get one response. But it all depends on a variety of factors. But you just keep that in mind when you're sending out. Like, don't send out 2 emails and get disappointed if you don't hear from them or don't get any business from it, because it's a numbers game, and the percentages of responses are very low. So, and then there's a lot of factors in there. So don't get if I sent out 100 solicitations and didn't get any response, that's exactly what I would expect, really. Because you're soliciting people that may or may not even be looking for bookkeepers. You might have just selected a group that's not, and not one of them is even looking for a bookkeeper. So, and then also, businesses can delay getting good bookkeeping. But if a business is going to be in business and they're doing well, they're going to want to have good bookkeeping over time, and they'll eventually have to address that situation. But it's not for a lot of businesses that are looking for bookkeepers. It's not their top priority for the day. They do it a lot of times. Most of the time, they're not proactive about it. It's more of something that they do when things get to a situation. Their books get really bad. It comes tax season, or they get to a point where they have to do it. So if you send out, and my point is, if you send out, say, 100 emails today, I wouldn't expect anything. You might expect something over time, like a response, but not like an immediate response. It's not like like a sunglass business in the summer running a sale on sunglasses, where people are excited about giving you their money for your product or services, because they're usually not. It's a necessary item that they try to delay, typically, as long as they can. So it's a numbers game. All right, let me see. Any other questions? What do you think about selecting a niche by month, like going after dentists 1 month? Yeah, it's a good idea. Getting after it is a good idea. Now, because even if that idea doesn't work, you're going to learn so much about a lot of things, a lot of different topics during that process. So that's why I say, like, to people all the time, you have to jump in, push it, try it, as long as it's not costing you a lot of money and you have the time, you should be doing something. Even if it doesn't work, like Sierra's question about sending emails, or yours about going to dentist's office. It doesn't hurt to do it. It doesn't cost anything to do it except some of your time. And you'll learn a lot about yourself. You'll learn about how to talk to people about your services. And if you do get feedback, you will get some kind of feedback. If you walk into a dentist's office, you're going to get feedback. So you'll learn how to say things differently over time, because you're going to have... every time you walk into a dentist's office, you'll say it slightly different, or you'll speak to them different. Their setup will be different. The receptionist will be, someone will be warm and welcoming, and some won't. And so you'll do the same thing a lot of different ways, and you'll learn through that process what works and what doesn't work. Some things will work better than others, obviously. So try things. Don't just sit around and think of things to do and then not do things. Think of things, kind of make a priority list, try them, see what works, and then like I said, you're going to learn so much through that process, and you might get work through it too. Yeah, so the Craigslist. So Jeff, your question about wording things on Craigslist or to a reply, or in your ad about saving money instead of them hiring a full-time bookkeeper. Well, just really kind of say it like it is. I don't think you have to have any fancy special wording. Just talk to them as a person, like if you were talking to, like, type it out as if you're talking directly to them. And and just put it in plain English. That would be my my best advice. Put it in plain English. That if you're looking for, this is one thing that I learned, is that an employer that has a bookkeeper that, say, is a full-time bookkeeper, they're working, say, 40 hours a week, and they're paying them for 40 hours a week. There's a good chance, not all of them, there's plenty of employee bookkeepers out there that are just swamped at their job. But then there's also those that don't have enough work at their job. So they're getting, an employer's paying an employee to do X amount of work. They're paying them X amount when they could be paying an outside bookkeeper to do the same amount of work for less. So that's probably the angle, just speaking off the top of my head, that's the angle that I would approach with it, is that you they can actually save money by hiring an outside bookkeeper, and also by them not being an employee, they don't have to pay payroll taxes. They don't have all the employee problems that employees can create. So independent contractor, you can let go at any time. They can, part ways at any time. There's no commitment there. And then also focus on the fact that they might be able to save money by having an outside bookkeeper do the books instead of an employee. Right. So the checklist for keeping on track on each point. So I'm going to let Cheryl provide something for that. So I'm going to write that down. That's a good question, Allison. I will... so you're asking for a checklist for bookkeeping to keep bookkeeping on track at each point of the month. Yeah. I'll have Cheryl contact you, Allison, to make sure that we fully understand what you're looking for, and we'll get a checklist going. All right. And okay, I finally realized what Facebook is doing on these messages. It's putting the newest one at the top. I know, I'm kind of slow. I have a cold, so my brain's functioning at a very slow pace. My processor's not moving very fast. All right. Cool. So if you don't have any other questions, I will end this for today. But like I said, I plan to do this every week, so we can touch base every week. You can let me know your updated questions. Hopefully answers from the previous week have helped you in some fashion. I can't stress it enough, like this, if you really want this thing to work, you have to make lists of priorities, tackle them, work on it all the time, and really wear the hat. Let everybody know that if you have a Facebook page with your friends, let all your friends know what you do, and then when you get your logo, share it with your friends. Be excited about it. When you get your website going, share it with your friends. Be excited about it, and all that will just helps you start to really wear the hat that that you are a bookkeeper, and it'll change something in your brain that helps you identify as a bookkeeper. And then then obviously all the people that you shared it with, if they run into somebody, oh yeah, one of my friends is a bookkeeper, let me get you in touch with them, that kind of thing happens. So stay at it, work at something today, work at something tomorrow, work at something on the weekends, and always be working at it. You'll start to see little cracks in the stone that you're chipping away at, and eventually you'll get clients, grow your business, live happily ever after. All right. Anyways, I hope you have a good day, and it was nice chatting with you. I'll talk to you next week. All right. Take care.